today's video about turning a reference into a citation. So what I have on the right side of my screen are the references for an example in-text citation worksheet. It's the extra one that I have up for explanation purposes on elephants and sheets. Another very silly one, but not as silly, not more silly, I guess I'd say, than our dragon one. So on the left over here, I have the letters. Notice that A, B, C, D, E, all the sources are lining up. And here in my in-text citation PowerPoint, I have key elements that I want to look at. In-text citations are much, much more concise than our references. References give everything that we think a person needs to go find that work. However, when we're looking at a citation, we want to be unobtrusive and give very clear directions. It's essentially a map key. We don't put, like write out the picnic space on I-35. We just put that symbol that means a picnic space. So we have those much smaller key items on the map. That's what we're doing here. All of our examples are going to use an author, which also includes book titles, article titles, and groups, and a date. Even if we don't have a date, we put in period D period for no date. Generally, our authors are going to fall into 3 examples. One author, it's just their last name. 2 authors, we separate their names, their last names only with an ampersand, that and symbol, or more than 2 authors. All of those, 3 to 100, 1,000, they go into the first author's name that's given, et for and all, period, AL period for Alia down here. We are taking the Latin and we're adding that in. So that's kind of what we're going to look at here. We have a couple of examples that are going to cover 1, 2, and 3 authors, and we have a book title and an institute, a group title, and we're going to use all 3 of those examples to fill in our references. So this is something you can practice before you tackle your work. You can go ahead and look at your references pages, and there are other videos on those, but we can look at those references and say, okay, what's going to go into that spot? So we're going to start A to A. So we're going to take that last name. Here it's the name Atchison, and we're going to take just the year. So notice the name is longer. We have initials to find that person. In this case, fortunately, we have the opportunity to give the month as well. Sometimes we even have the date. That's awesome. That only goes in our reference. Here in our citation, we're just going to take that name, the last name, and we're going to take the year. That's it. And you may notice that I'm not taking a location. If I get given one, if I'm given a location, I may add that in, but I'm never going to put like the page range that something covers, because that's in my references. And obviously, if I'm saying, Atchison talks about a ripe and weighty issue in interviewing Monica, that is going to cover the work itself. I don't need to tell people, hey, guess what? It's in the actual work. That's adding extra information that we don't need. So now let's look at the next one. Notice how quick that was. I took 2 items out of there. That's it. All of this turned into 2 words. That's all. So we're going to do that here. We're going to look for the author, Coleman. Whoops, I typed it in the wrong line. Coleman, comma, because we're separating those items to let people know, their name doesn't include a date. It could, right? Like numbers can be part of a name. Okay, now I'm going to do the next one. It's the same thing, but it's a new date, Coleman, 1988. That's it. I've taken all of this. Look at that, 3 entrances, 6 lines of information, but when that person reads, my reader reads Coleman 1988, they come to my reference page, A, B, C, oh, they found the C's. Now they know it's 1988. They find Coleman, they find 88, and now they found all of this, and they can go look it up. Next, we're changing gears a tiny bit. We have a dictionary, but remember, we want people to find the very first word. So I'm just going to type that name in here after I spell it correctly. Let's see, right, what did I do? I switched those letters. So again, we're done. We have put that name in there. Now, what if that name is really, really long? Like in that case, there were 3 words. That's not very big. But in this case, we have an institute name that's attached to a university. So Elephant Research Institute, Simon Fraser University. Look at how short all of these are. That's a lot of info. So we are just going to go for what will help a person find these key items. In this case, I'm going to put all 3 of these items because I want them to get to that area. Notice that we have 2 with the word elephants, so I want to make sure they get to the right one. Just being singular and plural isn't enough of a variation, so I want to make sure they find the Research Institute. But I don't need to put all of this in there. I don't need to put all of that. That's 3 lines, and I ended up taking 3 words and 1 year, so 4 items. That's it from 3 lines worth of content. So let's apply those ideas to the next one. This title, Elephant Stampede, 7 Cheese Lovers Trampled, and then I'm going to have the year, the month, and the day. But we don't want all that, right? We don't want all that stuff. That belongs in the reference. So I'm just going to grab this, Elephant Stampede. That will get my reader there. This is Elephant Research Institute, right? So it's 2 different words. The stampede should catch them. I'm not going to keep going, and then I'm just going to take the date, 2003. Done. So again, I took all of that, turned it into 2 words. I took all 3 of those items and I only kept the date. Oh, now we get a double, 2 people. Notice that ampersand goes in the reference as well. References and these parenthetical citations are going to use an ampersand. If I'm writing in a sentence, I'm going to use the word and. I'm going to spell everything out. So 2 authors, it means I take a last name, an ampersand, and a last name. So let's go type those in. We have Gibson, ampersand, Sturgis. And then I need my date, 1987. Again, all of this turned into, what, 4 items if we count the ampersand? Oh, now it's not just Gibson and Sturgis. We have Bates. So remember, once we cross from 2 to any more, 3, 4, 8, 1200, then we're going to use the same thing. We're going to start with the first author given. We're going to put and in Latin, AL for Alia, and a period because we're removing items. And that's our author list for our reference. That's our author list. So we put our comma there to separate it from the date, and the date is 1989. So again, all of that, 4 lines turned into just a little short work. Okay, now we have one with no date. So down here we have Gouda. And we're just going to put that in period D period. Notice that all of these items are separated by my comma. I have an initial item, the author or title, whatever is going to get me there on the reference page. I have a comma, and then I have my date. So now we have Moss 2003. Again, I'm putting in that last name, I'm putting in the year, and I'm done. Okay, next we have Sturgis by him or herself, because it said we have Monica up there. But notice that I have this little addition to my date, A and B. So both of these were printed in the same year, parts 1 and 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put her name there, Sturgis. I'm going to put the year, but the year includes A for the first item. And I'm going to do the same thing here. It includes B. So the question becomes, when I go back and I start looking, let's go back here. When I go back into this article and it says, well, use source F right here, put in the citation for source F. All I have to do now is say, okay, what's source F? And I'm good to go. That's exactly what's here. I have the title, comma, 2003. Here, it says source D. I go up here, I'm like, that's source D, and I'm good to put that in. I wanted to look at this one really quick because sometimes it's going to actually give us a page number to work with. This is really variable. Like if you're giving us a direct quote, obviously that should be on a page. And if you have a page range, put that specific page in there. But if we don't, if we have sort of a general, this is what they're talking about. So in this example, studies have confirmed. We're not citing a specific page, a specific element. We're just saying, hey, go check that one out, go check that one out, and you'll find that they are talking about these issues. Well, when that's happening, we're not giving that location number. But here, with our block quotation, we're giving a specific quote. And we're taking this quote and we're saying that is from page 160. So what we did is we took source C, so notice that it matches, and then we said, well, comma, we're going to add another item, P, period, and then that page number. The other thing I wanted to look at here, oh my goodness, we're stacking them up, right, is that if I have 2 or 3 or 4 sources that I want to note, I'm going to keep everything the same for each source, but I'm going to put a semicolon between them so that you know there are multiples stacking up. I could go on forever like that. I would just be throwing each one in. So notice that I would just keep putting those semicolons in there, and that would be separating them. So let's do one more that has a location. So I'm going to go in here. It says that I need source I, and that I have a specific thing for it. So Gouda, no date. And again, I'm just putting my commas in. And then in this case, I'm just going to put para period space 2. The introduction, if I want that to be separate from the rest of the works, that's just a chapter that's in the book itself or in the information that we've given, then it would have its own reference, and so that is never going to need to be included in the citation. So I've again just taken that specific location of where I'm going to find this at the start of it, paragraph 2. So I again took exactly what I'd written down, last name, no date, and then I put a specific location in it. So that's what we're doing. We're just practicing that. We're saying, if I have a reference, if I have all this info, what actually goes in the paper? Look at that. It's an entire page over here. And yet we've whittled it down to just those little items. And that's because when we are doing our citations, we want it to be a little clue, a little signal, a symbol for what someone should go find. We do not want to distract. We don't want to have lots of info in there because it doesn't belong there. It's in the reference page. You'll notice that this is quite different from, say, a blog post. Well, on a blog post, you probably don't have a reference page. And so the expectation is that I put it all right there in it. Or maybe you're doing something like Chicago Manual of Style and you're using footnotes. That means on the page itself, I have all that information. That's where our reference formatting styles come in, but once we're in them, we're looking for those specific details. Notice also that I put in an example from the New International Version, because once we have this, if that's the one I'm going to quote, so I tend to quote from this one because I've already memorized it, and so when I'm in there in the discussion board, I just put that information in, and I already know it because I memorized it, and I can get my citation going for each of you. So look at those ideas for having your citations ready to go, that you're practicing those ideas.